Even that's kind of like hocus pocus bullshit. You know, you're just going to do the best you can do.
I can't follow the logic on that at all.
Here you are. To address the reality of your autonomy. But in some ways, this is insane.
What is here? Just to investigate for yourself. What is here? Is that clear? It is?
That's all you can handle.
Is that clear?
I got strange ideas anyway.
It's not a teaching. It's not a belief system. It's not a way to live your life. It's not a should stop. It's not an if you stop, you will be rich and famous and universally loved and never have a sad moment. None of that, I promise. But if you're willing to investigate for yourself without believing it or learning it or hoping to get something from it, just a pure investigation out of the natural curiosity of the human mind.
If you're curious, look deeper and points in various places where you might look.
Just to investigate for yourself what is here.
The prevailing and predominant notion in human society. And most people, they go through their entire lives without ever questioning it, simply accepted as the way things are.
You do your best. What else can you do?
In that moment, there was a world when Tony existed, and it was here on earth. But what's valuable about that moment is I saw in that moment that when I believed my thoughts, I suffered. But when I questioned my thoughts, I didn't suffer, and I've come to see that this is true for every human being.
I got strange ideas anyway.
It's balance, and it's beautiful.
Well, I know some people don't like you to talk about those things. I know that.
What do the thoughts tell us about awareness? Absolutely nothing. We presume, we believe thoughts when thoughts tell us, because I, this thought, am private. Therefore, the awareness with which I am known must also share my qualities. In other words, it must be private and limited like me, like the thought that I am.
Or rather that the one awareness should be aware of all thoughts.
How do you know it isn't? You're getting a headache.
It's because in our culture, we don't investigate that.
And then the question, am I willing to trust that? And then the challenges get very big. But we'll get to that later.
Imagine you're swimming along. You don't know you're swimming along a lake because you don't know about water and lake. You're just on the surface. You only know front and back. And the branch of a tree dips down into the lake. What would you experience? How would the branch dipping into the water enter your world? What would you see? You'd just see a black line. And as the branch dipped further down, the black line would get longer because the branch is thicker, yeah? And then as the branch go up again, the line would get smaller. And then another line would appear over here that moves at a completely different rate to this line. So you'd have these two different lines, totally separate from each other. Now imagine if somebody came along and said, no, 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 these are two lines. They're not lines at all. They're branches that dip into and that actually they belong to the same tree. I mean, how would you, could you think about that with your two-dimensional mind? You just could not go there. You could not conceive of a third dimension. So the human mind knows 4 dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of time. What happens, why couldn't there be 5 dimensions? Or 11? Or 100? That a different mind was able to perceive? Why not? But the awareness with which the two-dimensional creature knows its experience, that awareness is not limited by its mind. Its mind is limited, but the awareness with which it knows its extremely limited mind is limited. Likewise, the human mind is very limited, and we make this huge presumption in our culture that what we are, awareness, shares the limits of our mind. That is the mistake we make. And our entire world culture is founded upon that mistake. It's a huge presumption. In fact, we believe it. We presume it to be so absolutely true that we don't even realize it's a presumption. We think it's just the absolute truth because it's so obvious. Look, you look at all these people, each of them with their own thoughts, therefore each of them with their own awareness. We don't stop to think, actually, there's no evidence for it.
I got strange ideas anyway.
We believe, for instance, that it is a different perceiver in each body or in each mind, you see. So we could ask ourselves, for instance, to start as a starting point. What evidence do we have that there are as many consciousnesses as there are minds, or as there are bodies, or body? And most of us, we are not ready to accept this possibility that that which is hearing these words in this moment is not separate, personal, mortal. A tower, a circular tower with all kinds of windows looking at a landscape. Each window, the landscape that appears in each window is different. Does the fact that the 6 landscapes that appear in the 6 windows are different implies that there are 6 observers in the tower? For the time being, we are not busy with that. We are busy trying to evaluate the validity of the evidence in support of the multiple observers theory. We are trying to see whether when we feel that we have evidence that there are many consciousnesses, whether we have facts to back it up. And you said, okay, the fact that this mind and that mind have different contents implies that there are 2 consciousnesses. I retract that.
It's balanced and it's beautiful.
It's because in our culture, we don't investigate that. There are no courses in consciousness. There are no courses in what am I, in primary school, in high school, in kindergarten, or in college. I've never seen a what am I course. which means that there is zero interest for that. In other words, all the interest goes towards that which is perceived, but there is zero interest in investigating that which perceives. As a result, also changes our behavior and the way we relate to our surroundings and to the people we interact with.
The prevailing and predominant notion in human society that we are separate and independent authoring entities. And in most people, they go through their entire lives without ever questioning, simply accepted as the way things are. In a in a very few cases, there is something that happens that brings this into question. That they become interested in looking at an alternative approach to understanding themselves and the world. Examining this fundamental question. Are we separate, independent, authoring entities? And blessedly, this doesn't provide an answer. It doesn't say yes or no. It says, if you're curious, look deeper. And points in various places where you might look.
I see what you see. Maya stays, ignorance goes. Nothing changes, but everything changes.